Jin wiped the sweat from his forehead as his cargo ship touched down on Valora Prime. The landing pad was smooth, made of some kind of white stone that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Everything on this planet looked expensive and perfect. Too perfect for a guy like him. He was just a cargo pilot. He moved supplies from one planet to another. Medical equipment, food, machine parts. Whatever paid the bills. Valora Prime was one of his regular stops. The Valorians always paid on time, so he didn't mind the trip. The Valorians themselves were strange to look at. They were tall and thin, with pale skin that had a slight silver shine to it. Their eyes were large and usually gray or silver. They moved like dancers, smooth and graceful. Jin had heard they could read minds, talk to each other without speaking. That made him uncomfortable, but they seemed to respect privacy. They never poked around in his head without permission. Jin opened his cargo bay and started unloading boxes of medical supplies. The Valorians had advanced technology, but they still needed certain medicines from other worlds. He didn't ask questions. He just delivered the goods. The royal district was nearby. He could see the tall towers and beautiful gardens from where he stood. Valorians loved their royalty. Queen Nari had ruled for over 50 years, keeping peace across their territory. Her daughters were famous throughout this sector of space. Jin had never met any of them. He didn't run in those circles. He was loading boxes onto a hover cart when he heard the explosion. The sound came from the direction of the royal district. Jin looked up and saw black smoke rising into the perfect blue sky. People started screaming. Valorians ran past him, their graceful movements turning clumsy with panic. Then he saw the transport vehicle. It was clearly royal, covered in silver and blue markings, but it was damaged, smoke pouring from its side. The vehicle crashed into the plaza about 50 meters from where Jin stood. The doors burst open. Several guards in ceremonial armor stumbled out, trying to form a protective circle. In the center was a young Valorian woman in elegant robes. Even from this distance, Jin could tell she was important. Probably royalty. Then the Krell came. Jin had heard about the Krell, everyone had. They were mercenaries from the outer rim, insect-like creatures that stood over 2 meters tall. Their exoskeletons were black and shiny, and they had 4 arms, each one holding a weapon. They were born fighters, raised for war and violence. 6 Krell warriors emerged from the smoke, moving fast toward the damaged transport. The Valorian guards tried to fight back, but they were ceremony guards, not soldiers. The Krell cut through them like paper. Plasma fire lit up the plaza. Guards fell, their silver blood pooling on the white stone. The young woman in the center was trying to run. She stumbled, fell. One of the Krell raised its weapon, aiming at her head. Jin didn't think. His body just moved. He grabbed a heavy metal pipe from his cargo and ran. His boots pounded against the stone. The Krell was focused on the princess. It didn't see him coming. Jin swung the pipe with everything he had. It connected with the Krell's head with a wet crunch. The creature staggered, surprised. Jin didn't give it time to recover. He hit it again and again until it dropped. The other 5 Krell turned toward him. Their mandibles clicked together, making sounds that might have been laughter. They saw a single human with a pipe. They probably thought he was insane. They were right. The first Krell charged him. Jin ducked under its plasma shot and slammed the pipe into its knee joint. The exoskeleton cracked. The creature screamed, a horrible sound like metal scraping metal. Jin ripped a plasma rifle from its hands and shot it in the face. 2 more came at him from different sides. Jin rolled, came up firing. He hit one in the chest. Its armor held, but the impact knocked it back. The other one got close, slashing with a curved blade. Jin felt fire across his shoulder. Blood soaked his shirt. He ignored the pain. Humans were good at that. Jin used the plasma rifle like a club, smashing it into the Krell's mandibles. Pieces of exoskeleton flew off. He grabbed the blade from its hand and drove it into the gap between its head and body. The Krell went down gurgling. His shoulder was burning. His vision was getting blurry. But there were still 3 Krell left, and the princess was defenseless behind him. The next Krell shot him. The plasma blast hit his side, burning through his jacket and into his flesh. Jin screamed but didn't fall. He couldn't fall. If he fell, she died. He charged forward instead. The Krell wasn't expecting that. Nobody expects a wounded creature to attack. Jin tackled it, using his weight to bring it down. They hit the ground hard. Jin grabbed its head and twisted with all his strength. Something snapped. 2 left. They were more careful now. They circled him, weapons raised. Jin could barely stand. Blood was running down his side, pooling in his boot. Everything hurt. His body was screaming at him to lie down to rest, but the princess was still behind him. She was crying, calling for help in her musical language. Her silver eyes were wide with fear. Jin raised the blade he'd taken. His hand was shaking. "Come on, then," he said through gritted teeth. The Krell rushed him together. Jin managed to cut one across the arm, but the other one shot him again. This time in the leg. He went down hard, the blade clattering away. The Krell stood over him, weapon pointed at his head. Jin tried to get up. His body wouldn't respond. This was it. He'd done what he could. Then the sky filled with light. Imperial reinforcements arrived, real soldiers this time. They fired from above. Precision shots that took the last two Krell down in seconds. Jin lay on the blood-stained stone, staring up at the blue sky. He could hear boots running toward him. Someone was shouting orders. The princess appeared in his vision, her silver eyes full of tears. She was saying something, holding his hand. Jin tried to tell her it was okay. She was safe. That was all that mattered. But the words wouldn't come. The world was getting dark around the edges. The last thing he felt was her small hand gripping his, and then everything went black. Waking up hurt more than getting shot. Jin's eyes opened slowly. Everything was white. White ceiling, white walls, white sheets. For a moment he thought he was dead. Then the pain hit him and he knew he was very much alive. Dead people didn't hurt this much. He tried to sit up. His body immediately told him that was a terrible idea. Every muscle screamed in protest. His shoulder felt like someone had poured acid on it. His side wasn't much better. "Please remain still." The voice was soft and musical. A Valorian in medical robes appeared beside his bed. "You have been through extensive trauma. Your body needs time to heal. Where am I?" Jin's voice came out as a croak. "The Imperial Medical Facility. You have been unconscious for 3 days." The doctor touched a panel on the wall. A holographic display appeared, showing Jin's body covered in red marks. "You sustained 3 plasma burns, multiple lacerations, a fractured rib, and severe blood loss. By Valorian standards, you should have died within minutes." Jin looked down at himself. His torso was covered in some kind of clear gel that glowed faintly blue. He could see the burn marks underneath, angry and red. "But I'm human. We're harder to kill." The doctor made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Indeed. Your species has a remarkable tolerance for damage. You died twice during surgery. Your heart stopped both times, and yet here you are, awake and talking." "The princess?" Jin asked. "Is she safe?" "Princess Hana is unharmed thanks to you. She has been asking about your condition every day." The doctor adjusted something on the medical panel. "You should rest now. The regeneration gel will help, but healing takes time even for humans." Jin wanted to ask more questions, but exhaustion pulled him back under. When he woke again, it was darker. A single light glowed softly near his bed, and someone was sitting in the chair beside him. Princess Hana looked different than she had in the plaza. She wore simple robes instead of the elegant dress she'd had on during the attack. Her silver hair was pulled back in a braid, but her eyes were the same, large and silver, watching him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You are awake," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah." Jin tried to sit up again. This time he managed to prop himself up a little. "You shouldn't be here. I'm nobody important. You saved my life." Her voice was quiet but firm. "That makes you very important." Jin didn't know what to say to that. He'd just done what anyone would do. Well, what any human might do. He was starting to realize that Valorians didn't think the way humans did. "Why did you do it?" Hana asked. "You did not know me. You had no obligation. Yet you fought 6 Krell warriors with nothing but improvised weapons." "They were going to kill you," Jin said simply. "I couldn't just watch." Hana tilted her head, studying him like he was some kind of puzzle. "Most species would have fled. Self-preservation is a powerful instinct, but you ran toward danger instead. I guess humans are stupid that way." "Not stupid." Hana leaned forward slightly. "Brave. Foolishly brave, perhaps, but brave nonetheless." Over the next few days, the princess visited often. At first, Jin thought it was just politeness, some kind of royal obligation. But she seemed genuinely interested in him. She asked about Earth, about his life as a cargo pilot, about human culture and history. Jin found himself enjoying their conversations. Hana was smart, curious, and she laughed at his stories. She told him about Valora Prime, about growing up in the palace, about the burden of being royalty. Everyone expects us to be perfect, she said one afternoon, to never show fear or weakness. But when those Krell came, I was terrified. I froze, all my training, all my preparation, and I could not even run properly. Fear is normal, Jin said. It keeps you alive. The trick is not letting it control you. You did not seem afraid when you fought them. Jin laughed, then winced as it pulled at his healing ribs. I was scared out of my mind. But I was more scared of what would happen if I didn't do anything. Hana looked at him for a long moment. You are not what I expected a human to be. What did you expect? The stories say humans are violent and aggressive. Warriors who love fighting. Some of us are, Jin admitted. But most of us just want to live quiet lives. I became a cargo pilot because I was tired of fighting. I thought I could just move supplies and stay out of trouble. That did not work well for you, Hana said with a small smile. Yeah, apparently trouble finds me anyway. By the end of the second week, Jin was walking again. The doctors were amazed at how fast he healed. They kept running tests, fascinated by human biology. Jin just wanted to get back to his ship. On the day the doctors cleared him for discharge, Jin packed his few belongings and prepared to leave. He'd already stayed longer than he planned. His cargo business was suffering. He needed to get back to work. He was heading toward the exit when guards in ceremonial armor blocked his path. Jin of Earth, one of them said formally, you are summoned to the throne room. The Queen wishes to speak with you, Jin's stomach sank. He'd been hoping to avoid this. Meeting royalty made him nervous. But he couldn't exactly refuse a summons from the Queen. The throne room was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high Jin couldn't see the top. Pillars of white stone lined the walls, and the floor was polished to a mirror shine. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat Queen Nari. She looked like an older version of Hana, but there was a weight to her presence that the princess didn't have. Power, authority, the kind that came from ruling an empire for decades. Jin walked forward and bowed awkwardly. He wasn't sure of the proper protocol. Jin of Earth, the Queen's voice filled the room. You have done my family a great service. You saved my daughter's life at great personal risk. I just did what needed to be done, Your Majesty. Modesty is admirable, but unnecessary. The Queen stood, descending from her throne. According to our law, you have created a life debt of the highest order. Do you understand what this means? Jin had a bad feeling about this. Not really, no. It means you are now bound to the Imperial House. You have proven yourself capable of protecting my daughter when our own guards failed. Therefore, you will remain here as her personal protector. Jin stared at her. I'm sorry, what? You are now Shield of the Crown, a position of great honor. You will be given quarters in the palace, a generous stipend, and all the resources you require. Your Majesty, I appreciate the offer, but I'm a cargo pilot. I have a business, contracts, obligations, which will be handled. Your ship will be maintained, your contracts fulfilled by others. Jin felt panic rising in his chest. You're saying I can't leave? Queen Nari's expression didn't change. The life debt cannot be refused. It is our highest law. You saved royal blood. You are now bound to serve until the debt is satisfied. How long does that take? There is no set time. It is satisfied when I declare it satisfied. Jin looked around the throne room at the guards standing at attention, at the enormous space that suddenly felt like a cage. So I'm a prisoner. You are honored, the Queen corrected. And you will learn to accept this honor. My daughter's life is in danger. Someone sent those Krell to kill her. Until I find out who and until they are dealt with, you will remain at her side. The Queen returned to her throne. You are dismissed. Guards will show you to your quarters. Jin wanted to argue, to protest, to demand his freedom, but looking at Queen Nari's calm, implacable expression, he knew it would be useless. He'd saved the princess's life, and now that act of heroism had trapped him in a gilded cage. As guards escorted him from the throne room, Jin wondered what he'd gotten himself into. Jin's quarters in the palace were bigger than his entire ship. The bedroom alone could fit 3 cargo bays. Everything was made of expensive materials, soft fabrics and polished wood. There was a balcony overlooking the royal gardens. Most people would kill for a room like this. Jin hated it. He stood on the balcony looking out at the perfectly manicured gardens and felt like he couldn't breathe. This wasn't freedom. This was a very comfortable prison. A servant appeared at his door, a young Valorian carrying formal robes. Your presence is requested at the evening meal, Shield of the Crown. I'm not hungry, Jin said. It is not optional, sir. Palace protocol requires your attendance, Jin sighed. Of course it wasn't optional. Nothing here was optional. The dining hall was ridiculous. A table that could seat 50 people stretched down the center. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Everything sparkled. Jin felt completely out of place in his borrowed formal robes. Queen Nari sat at the head of the table. Princess Hana sat to her right. Several other nobles and officials filled the other seats. Jin was directed to a seat near the princess. The meal was awkward. Everyone spoke in quiet, polite tones. They used utensils Jin didn't recognize for food he'd never seen before. The Valorians moved with perfect grace, every gesture smooth and practiced. Jin felt like a bull in a china shop. Hana tried to help, quietly explaining what each dish was, which utensil to use. But the other nobles watched him with barely concealed amusement. To them, he was entertainment. The crude human who saved the princess. After the meal, Jin escaped to his quarters as quickly as protocol allowed. He tried to sleep, but the bed was too soft, the room too quiet. He was used to the hum of ship engines, the occasional rattle of loose panels. This silence felt wrong. The next morning, an advisor arrived to explain his duties. Jin was to accompany Princess Hana wherever she went. He was to attend all official functions. He was to train with the royal guards. He was to learn palace protocol. Jin asked when he could leave. The advisor smiled politely and didn't answer. The days blurred together. Jin followed the princess to boring meetings and formal ceremonies. He stood around in his ceremonial armor, feeling useless. The guards looked at him with a mix of respect and resentment. He'd done what they couldn't, and that bothered them. Hana was sympathetic, at least. I know this is not the life you wanted, she said one afternoon as they walked through the gardens. No offense to you, but no, it's not. I understand. I was born into this, and even I find it suffocating sometimes. For you, it must be unbearable. Jin looked at her. Then help me leave. I cannot. My mother has made her decision, and no one questions the queen. Hana touched a flowering plant, her expression sad. But I can try to make it more bearable. She started spending more time with him, not just at official functions, but in quieter moments. She showed him the parts of the palace tourists never saw. The old library with books from a dozen worlds. The observatory where you could see 3 moons rising at once. The kitchen where the cooks let her steal pastries when she was a child. Jin found himself enjoying her company despite the circumstances. Hana was smart and funny when she didn't have to be formal Princess Hana. She asked endless questions about Earth, about space travel, about what it was like to be free to go wherever you wanted. Is it wonderful? She asked once. Just getting in your ship and leaving whenever you want? Sometimes, Jin admitted. Sometimes it's lonely, but at least it's my choice. 3 weeks after being trapped in the palace, Jin tried to leave for the first time. He waited until late at night, then slipped out of his quarters. He knew where the servants' exits were. He made it all the way to the outer wall before guards appeared from the shadows. Shield of the Crown, one said politely but firmly. Please return to your quarters. I'm just going for a walk. Outside the palace grounds is not permitted. Please return to your quarters. Jin considered fighting his way out, but these weren't ceremony guards. These were real soldiers, and there were a lot of them. He went back to his room, anger burning in his chest. The second attempt was during a public festival. The palace opened to visitors, and Jin thought he could slip out in the crowd. He made it to the main gates this time before guards intercepted him. This is getting old, Jin said. We have our orders, the guard replied. You are too valuable to lose. The third time, Jin made it all the way to the spaceport. He'd stolen a servant's uniform and timed his escape during a shift change. His ship was right there, just across the landing pad. He was 50 meters away when a royal transport landed in front of him. Queen Nari herself stepped out. Enough, she said simply. They stood in the spaceport, guards surrounding them. Jin was breathing hard, hands clenched into fists. He was so close. His ship was right there. You cannot keep me here forever, Jin said. Can I not? The queen's expression was cold. You think yourself imprisoned, but you are alive because I will it. You think I do not know what you are going through? I do, but I also know what I am protecting. I saved your daughter's life. Isn't that enough? No, the queen stepped closer. Because her life is still in danger. The Krell were mercenaries. Someone paid them to kill Hana. Someone who wants my family dead. And you, stubborn human, are the only one I trust to keep her safe. Your guards failed. They are trained for ceremony and show. When real violence came, they fell like wheat before a scythe. But you, she gestured at him, you fought 6 Krell warriors with improvised weapons and won. You died twice and came back. You are exactly what we need, Jin wanted to argue, but looking at the Queen's face, he saw something he hadn't expected. Fear. Not for herself, but for her daughter. How long? Jin asked quietly. Until I find who sent those assassins. Until I know my daughter is safe. The Queen's voice softened slightly. I know I am asking much of you, but I am asking as a mother, not as a queen. Please, protect my child. Jin looked at his ship one more time. Then he looked back at the Queen. Fine, but I want something in return. Name it. Let me train your guards properly. Not ceremony and protocol. Real combat. If I'm going to be stuck here protecting the princess, I want backup that won't fold the moment things get dangerous. The Queen considered this. Very well. You may train them, but you will not leave, Jin nodded slowly. If he had to be here, he might as well do something useful. The training sessions started the next day. Jin gathered the royal guards in the practice yard. They stood in perfect formation, armor gleaming. Everything you know is wrong, Jin announced. That got their attention. You fight like you're dancing. All grace and form. That's great for shows, but in a real fight, grace gets you killed. Jin grabbed a practice sword. Fighting isn't about looking good. It's about surviving. It's about refusing to quit when everything hurts and you just want to lie down and die. He spent hours drilling them. Forget perfect stances. Fight dirty. Use the environment. Never give up even when you're losing. The guards struggled at first. Everything Jin taught went against their training, but slowly they started to improve. They learned that survival mattered more than elegance. That a crude move that worked was better than a perfect move that left you dead. Hana often watched the training sessions from the balcony. Afterward, she would find Jin and they would talk. About fighting. About strategy. About life. You are changing them, she said one evening. They move differently now. More like you. I'm teaching them to survive. Is that all you know? Survival? Jin thought about it. I guess so. Humans are good at that. We survive things that should kill us. We adapt, we endure. It's kind of our thing. It must be exhausting, Hana said quietly. Sometimes, but it's better than dying. One night, Jin received a message on his old communication device. He'd hidden it in his quarters, not sure if he'd ever use it again. The message was from Tay, an old friend from his military days. Jin, I heard you're on Valora Prime. Be careful. Word spreading in the mercenary networks. Big bounty on Princess Hana. Another hit's coming soon. Jin read the message 3 times. Then he went to find the Queen. Queen Nari listened to Jin's warning in silence. They were in her private study, away from the ears and eyes of the court. When Jin finished explaining about Tai's message, she set down her cup of tea carefully. Your source is reliable? She asked. Tai saved my life 3 times when we served together. If he says there's a threat, there's a threat. The Queen stood and walked to the window. I have suspected as much. The Krell attack was too coordinated, too well-timed. Someone with knowledge of Hana's schedule hired them. Someone inside the palace, Jin said. Yes. The Queen's reflection in the window looked tired. But who? I have ruled for 50 years. I have many enemies, but few who would dare attack my family directly. Jin had been thinking about this. Since being forced to stay in the palace, he'd had nothing to do but observe, and he'd noticed things that didn't make sense. The nobles, Jin said. Some of them avoid the princess, like they don't want to be seen with her. You have noticed this? I'm not telepathic. People forget I'm watching because I can't hear their mental conversations, but I can see body language, and some of your nobles act guilty around her. The Queen turned to face him. Which ones? Jin described what he'd seen. Lord Quan, who always found excuses to leave when Hana entered a room. Lady Yuna, who smiled but kept her distance. Minister Bora, who watched the princess with cold eyes during council meetings. You are observant, the Queen said. This is useful. Continue watching. Tell me everything you see. So Jin became a spy in addition to being a bodyguard. He attended boring meetings and formal dinners, but now he paid attention to the politics swirling around him. And what he saw wasn't pretty. The Valorian court was a nest of vipers. Everyone smiled and bowed and spoke politely. But underneath, The courtesy. There were schemes and rivalries and barely concealed hatred. Jin found it exhausting. He started sharing his observations with Hana during their walks through the gardens. Lord Quan met with Minister Bora 3 times this week, Jin said. Always in private rooms. They stopped talking when I walked past. Hana frowned. That is unusual. They are normally enemies. They disagree on everything. Maybe they found something to agree on. You think they are plotting against my family? I think they're plotting something. Whether it's against you specifically, I don't know yet. Hana was quiet for a moment. I never paid attention to these things before. The court was just background noise, but you see it all so clearly. Because I'm an outsider, Jin said. I don't understand your telepathic social rules. I can only watch what people do, not what they think. And sometimes actions tell you more than thoughts. The princess started looking at her own court differently after that. She began to see the patterns Jin saw, the quiet meetings, the careful avoidance, the false smiles. It is like seeing my home for the first time, she said one night. I thought I knew these people, but I was only seeing the surface. Meanwhile, Jin continued training the guards. He pushed them hard, making them practice until they collapsed from exhaustion. Some resented him for it. Others began to understand what he was teaching them. One guard, a young Valorian named Daejung, approached Jin after a particularly brutal training session. Why do you care so much? Daejung asked. You are only here because the queen forces you to stay. Yet you train us as if our lives matter to you. Jin wiped sweat from his face. Because next time assassins come, I might need backup, and I prefer my backup to be alive and useful. Is that the only reason? Jin thought about it. No. I've seen good soldiers die because of bad training. If I can prevent that, I will. Daejung nodded slowly. You are not what I expected a human to be. Yeah, I get that a lot. The guards gradually improved. They learned to fight without relying on grace and form. They learned to take hits and keep fighting. They learned that survival was more important than looking good. Jin also started teaching them about human combat psychology. When you fight, your opponent expects certain things. Valorians fight in predictable patterns. Break those patterns. To the unexpected. He demonstrated by having Daejung attack him. The guard came in with a perfect thrust, textbook form. Jin ignored it, stepped inside the guard's reach, and threw dirt in his face. While Daejung was blinded, Jin swept his legs and put a practice blade to his throat. That was dishonorable, Daejung protested, spitting dirt. That was effective. Honor doesn't matter if you're dead. Some of the older guards grumbled about this teaching. They said Jin was corrupting Valorian traditions, but the younger guards, the ones who would actually have to fight, they listened. They learned. Princess Hana continued to spend time with Jin. Their conversations grew longer, more personal. She told him about the pressure of being royalty, about the expectations placed on her since birth. Everyone sees the crown, not the person underneath, she said. Sometimes I forget who I am without all the titles and protocols. You're someone who cares about her people, Jin said. Someone who's smart enough to ask questions instead of just accepting what she's told. That's who you are. Hana smiled. You see me differently than others do. I see you as a person, not a princess. Is that why you are not afraid to disagree with me? Jin laughed. I'm not afraid to disagree with your mother, and she's the queen. Why would I be afraid of you? Most people are terrified of my mother. Most people haven't died twice and lived to complain about it. Kind of gives you perspective. As weeks turned into months, Jin found himself settling into palace life despite hating it. He had a routine now. Morning training with the guards. Afternoon meetings and ceremonies with the princess. Evening reports to the queen about what he'd observed. He was still a prisoner, but at least he was a useful prisoner. One evening, as Jin was preparing for bed, Hana knocked on his door. This was unusual. She never visited his quarters this late. Something is wrong, she said when he answered. I can feel it. The palace feels different tonight. Jin had learned to trust her instincts. Valorians could sense emotions. pick up on subtle changes in atmosphere. Different how. Tense, afraid, like everyone is waiting for something to happen. Jin grabbed his weapons. Stay behind me. They moved through the palace corridors. Everything seemed normal, but Jin felt it too now. The servants moved too quickly. Guards stood too rigid at their posts. Something was coming. They reached the queen's chambers. Nari was in a meeting with her council. Jin knocked and entered without waiting for permission. Jin? The queen looked surprised. What is wrong? I don't know yet, but something's about to happen. I can feel it. Lord Quan, who was at the meeting, laughed. Feel it? You are not even telepathic. How could you? The explosion cut him off. Somewhere in the palace, something detonated. The floor shook. Alarms started blaring. Jin grabbed Hana and pulled her behind him. Everyone get to the safe room now. The council members scrambled to their feet. Guards rushed in, surrounding the queen, but Jin kept his eyes on Lord Quan. The noble looked shocked, but not surprised. Like he knew this was coming but hadn't expected it to be so loud. Another explosion. Closer this time. Screams echoed through the hallways. Move, Jin shouted. They're inside the palace. As they ran toward the fortified throne room, Jin realized Tay's warning had come true. The second attack was here, and this time the assassins weren't Krell warriors. The Festival of Stars was supposed to be a celebration. The palace opened to the public once a year, allowing citizens to view the royal gardens and enjoy performances. Jin had argued against it, but Queen Nari refused to cancel. Showing fear would give the conspirators power. Now Jin realized it had been a trap. The royal family and their council ran through smoke-filled corridors toward the throne room. It was the most fortified location in the palace, designed to withstand sieges. Guards ran alongside them, weapons drawn. They almost made it. The first guard died without a sound. One moment he was running beside Jin, the next he collapsed, a blade embedded in his chest. But Jin hadn't seen anyone throw it. Shade walkers. Queen Nari's voice was sharp with fear. Jin cursed. He'd heard of shade walkers. Genetically engineered assassins who could phase through matter, turning invisible and intangible at will. They were illegal across most of civilized space, and they cost a fortune to hire. Another guard fell, then another. The shadewalkers were picking them off one by one. Jin couldn't see them, couldn't fight them. He could only keep moving, keeping himself between the assassins and Hana. They reached the throne room. Heavy doors slammed shut behind them. Guards took positions around the room, weapons ready. The room was built like a fortress with walls 3 meters thick. We are safe here, Lord Quan said, breathing hard. Nothing can penetrate these walls. Jin looked at him. Shadewalkers don't need doors. They walk through walls. As if to prove his point, a figure materialized in the center of the room. The Shadewalker was humanoid but wrong. Its skin was gray and smooth like a corpse. Its eyes were black pits. It held 2 curved blades that dripped with silver blood. The guards opened fire. Plasma bolts passed straight through the assassin as it phased. Then it solidified, moved faster than Jin could track, and cut down 2 guards before phasing again. Jin pushed Hana behind the throne. Stay down! More shadewalkers appeared, 5, 6 too many. The guards tried to fight, but how do you fight something you can't hit? The assassins moved between solid and phantom states, striking when solid, dodging when intangible. Jin watched them carefully. There had to be a pattern. Shadewalkers couldn't stay phased forever. It took energy. They had to solidify to attack. That meant they were vulnerable, even if only for seconds. A Shadewalker materialized next to him, blade swinging for his throat. Jin ducked, grabbed a fallen guard's plasma rifle, and fired. The assassin phased at the last second. The bolt passed through empty air, but Jin was already moving. He kicked over a heavy ceremonial brazier. Hot coals spilled across the floor. The Shadewalker materialized to avoid stepping in the coals, and Jin shot it in the face. One down, Daejung, Jin shouted at the guard he'd trained. Environmental hazards. Make them solidify. Daejung understood immediately. He overturned furniture, creating obstacles. Other guards caught on, doing the same. The throne room became a chaotic maze of barriers and hazards. The Shadewalkers had to stay solid longer to navigate the obstacles. That gave the guards opportunities to strike. 2 more assassins fell, but there were still too many. And the guards were dying. Jin saw Daejung go down, a blade through his shoulder. The young guard kept fighting even as silver blood poured from his wound. Jin moved through the chaos, trying to protect Hana and the queen simultaneously. A Shadewalker appeared directly in front of the princess. Jin threw himself between them, taking a slash across his arm. Pain exploded up his shoulder, but he ignored it. He grabbed the assassin's wrist when it solidified, preventing it from phasing again. They grappled, both fighting for control of the blade. The Shadewalker was strong, faster than Jin. But Jin had something it didn't. He had experience fighting things that wanted him dead. Jin headbutted the assassin, breaking its nose. It staggered back. Jin ripped the blade from its hand and drove it through the creature's throat. Black blood sprayed across his face. 3 down, but more guards were falling. The throne room was littered with bodies now, silver and red blood mixing on the marble floor. Queen Nari was fighting too. She wielded a ceremonial sword with surprising skill, moving with the grace all Valorians possessed. But even she couldn't match the Shadewalker's speed. Jin looked around desperately. They couldn't win this fight. There were too many assassins and his people were dying. Then he remembered something. The throne room had windows high up near the ceiling. They overlooked the royal gardens 3 stories down. It was a terrible idea. But Jin was good at terrible ideas. He grabbed Hana's hand. "Do you trust me?" "What?" "Yes, but—" Jin didn't wait for her to finish. He ran toward the window, pulling her with him. A Shadewalker materialized in their path. Jin shot it without slowing down. "Jin, what are you doing?" Hana was screaming. "Something stupid." Jin smashed through the window, glass exploding outward. For a moment they were flying, 3 stories up with nothing but air beneath them. Then they were falling. Jin twisted in the air, putting himself underneath Hana. They hit the garden pond hard. Water exploded around them. The impact drove the air from Jin's lungs and sent shockwaves of pain through his body. But water was softer than stone. They surfaced, gasping. Jin dragged Hana toward the shore. Above them, the battle in the throne room continued. But they were out. They were safe. Except they weren't. A Shadewalker appeared on the shore, stepping out of the palace wall as if it was made of fog. It looked at them with its dead black eyes. Jin pushed Hana behind him. He'd lost his weapons in the fall. The assassin had both its blades. This was going to hurt. The Shadewalker attacked. Jin dodged the first strike, but the second one caught him across the ribs. He felt the blade cut deep, felt his blood start to flow. The pain was incredible, but he couldn't stop. If he stopped, Hana died. He grabbed the assassin again during its solid phase, this time going for its eyes. The Shadewalker tried to phase, but Jin held on, his fingers digging into its skull. They fell into the pond together, water churning around them. Underwater, the Shadewalker couldn't breathe. Neither could Jin, but he was better at holding his breath. He kept his grip on the creature's head, pushing it deeper. The assassin thrashed, trying to phase, but it needed concentration for that. Panic was breaking its focus. Jin's lungs were burning. His vision was getting dark. But he didn't let go. Couldn't let go. The Shadewalker's struggles became weaker, then stopped. Jin surfaced, dragging the dead assassin with him. He crawled onto the shore and collapsed, coughing water. His side was on fire where the blade had cut him. Blood was soaking his clothes. Hana knelt beside him, her face pale with fear. "Jin, you are bleeding. We need to get you help." "In a minute," Jin gasped. "Just need to catch my breath." "You jumped through a window." "From 3 stories up." Seemed like a good idea at the time. Above them, the sounds of battle were fading. Jin forced himself to sit up, ignoring the pain. He needed to see what was happening. The throne room windows were dark. Either the fight was over or everyone was dead. Jin struggled to his feet, swaying. Hana tried to support him, but she was too small. They both nearly fell. Then guards appeared, running from the palace. Real guards, the ones Jin had trained. They surrounded Jin and Hana, weapons ready. "The throne room?" Jin asked. "Secure," one guard said. His armor was dented and blood-splattered. "The assassins are dead or fled." "Queen Nari is safe." Jin felt relief wash over him. Then his legs gave out. He sat down hard on the grass, his vision swimming. "Jin!" Hana was crying now. "Stay awake. Help is coming." "Not sleeping," Jin mumbled. "Just resting my eyes." The last thing he saw before darkness took him was Hana's silver eyes filled with tears and something else. Something that looked like the way she'd looked at him in the plaza all those months, ago. Like he was the only thing standing between her and death, like he was her hero. Jin decided that wasn't a bad last sight to see. Then everything went black, and the world disappeared into comfortable darkness once again. Jin woke to pain and soft humming. Someone was sitting beside his bed singing quietly in Valorian. The melody was sad and beautiful. He opened his eyes. Hana sat in the chair, still wearing her torn and water-stained robes from the attack. She had bruises on her arms and a cut across her cheek. But she was alive. "You stayed," Jin said, his voice rough. Hana looked up and tears immediately filled her eyes. "You idiot. You jumped through a window. You could have died." "But I didn't." "You almost did. Again." She leaned forward, angry and relieved at the same time. "Why do you keep doing this? Throwing yourself into danger for me?" Jin thought about it. "Because someone has to. That is not an answer. It's the only one I have." The doctors came in then, examining Jin's wounds. The blade had cut deep, but missed vital organs. The fall had cracked 3 ribs and given him a concussion. The plasma burns from the first attack had reopened during the fight. "You are remarkably durable," the doctor said, not for the first time. "Any normal being would be dead twice over. Humans are stubborn about dying," Jin said. Over the next few days, as Jin healed again, the full scope of the conspiracy became clear. The captured Shadewalkers had been interrogated. Under pressure, they'd revealed who hired them. It wasn't one person. It was a coalition. Lord Quan, Minister Bora, Lady Yuna, and 6 other noble houses, all of them united against Queen Nari's rule. The Queen had been pushing reforms for years, opening trade with other species, reducing the nobles' power, giving common Valorians more say in government. The old families hated it. They wanted things to go back to how they were centuries ago, so they'd hired assassins to eliminate the royal family. With Nari and her daughters dead, they could seize power and undo all her changes. They'd failed because of one human who refused to quit. Jin was moved to a secure room while he recovered. Guards stood outside his door day and night. Hana visited constantly, sometimes just sitting quietly while he slept. One evening, Queen Nari herself came to visit. She dismissed the guards and doctors, leaving them alone. Jin tried to sit up, but she gestured for him to stay lying down. "You saved my daughter again," the Queen said. She looked older than Jin remembered. Tired. "You jumped through a window. You fought a Shadewalker underwater. You nearly died. Again." "I'm getting used to it," Jin said. The Queen sat in the chair Hana usually occupied. For a long moment she just looked at him. Then she spoke, and her voice was different. Not the commanding tone of a queen, but something softer. "I owe you honesty," she said. "When I first bound you to the Imperial House, I told you it was because of tradition. The life debt. That was not entirely true. Jin had suspected as much. I kept you here because I was afraid," the Queen continued. "My people have known 3 centuries of peace. We have grown soft. We train guards for ceremony, not combat. We settle disputes with words and telepathy, not violence. That is good, in many ways. But it made us vulnerable." She stood and walked to the window. "When the Krell attacked Hana, our guards fell immediately. They were not prepared for real violence, but you were. You with your cargo loader's pipe and your human refusal to give up. You did what an entire squad of trained soldiers could not. So you made me a prisoner." "Yes. Because I knew another attack would come. The first attempt was too calculated, too well funded. Someone powerful wanted my family dead. And I knew that only someone like you, someone who carries violence and survival in their blood, could protect what I could not." Queen Nari turned back to face him. "I did not keep you here because of tradition. I kept you here because I was terrified of losing my daughter, and I knew you were too stubborn to let her die." Jin didn't know what to say. He'd been angry at the Queen for months, seeing her as a tyrant who'd stolen his freedom. But now he saw a mother, desperate to protect her child. "You could have just asked," Jin said quietly. "Would you have stayed?" Jin thought about it honestly. "Probably not. At first." "Exactly. So I used the law to bind you. It was not fair. It was not right. But it was necessary." The Queen's expression softened slightly. "Though I think perhaps you do not hate it here as much as you claim." "What makes you say that?" "Because you could have left. Several times. You are clever enough to evade my guards if you truly wanted to, but you stayed. You trained our soldiers. You protected my daughter. You did all of this while claiming to hate every moment." Jin realized she was right. Somewhere along the way, he'd stopped trying so hard to escape. He'd found purpose here, friends even, and Hana. "The conspirators will stand trial," the Queen said, changing the subject. "The noble houses involved will lose their titles and lands. It will cause upheaval, but necessary upheaval. Will there be more attempts? Perhaps, but now we are prepared. Thanks to you, our guards actually know how to fight. They learned from a human what it means to survive." She moved toward the door, then paused. "Your life debt is satisfied, Jin of Earth. You have saved my daughter twice. You have uncovered a conspiracy. You have transformed our military. You are free to leave whenever you wish with my gratitude and generous compensation." The words Jin had wanted to hear for months. Freedom. He could leave. Go back to his ship, his cargo routes, his old life. So why did the thought make his chest feel tight? "Thank you," Jin said. Queen Nari nodded and left. Jin lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Free. He was finally free. Hana came to visit that evening. She was quiet, not her usual curious self. They sat in silence for a while. "Mother told me," Hana finally said, "that you can leave now." "Yeah." "When will you go?" "I don't know. I need to heal first. Make sure my ship still works after sitting idle for months." Hana nodded, not looking at him. Of course, that makes sense. More silence. "I will miss our conversations," Hana said softly. "You see the world so differently than we do. It has been. Refreshing." "I'll miss them too," Jin admitted. "Will you?" Hana looked at him then. "Or are you just being polite?" "I'm never just polite. Ask anyone." That got a small smile from her. "True, you are many things, but rarely polite." They talked for a while longer, carefully avoiding the topic of Jin leaving. Eventually, Hana had to go to a council meeting. She stood at the door for a moment. "Jin, whatever you decide, thank you. For everything. You gave me my life back, twice." After she left, Jin lay alone with his thoughts. Freedom meant going back to empty cargo runs, sleeping alone on his ship, no one to talk to for weeks at a time. It meant never seeing Hana again, never hearing her laugh at his terrible jokes, never watching her eyes light up when she learned something new. Freedom suddenly seemed very lonely. Jin realized something that should have been obvious for a while now. Somewhere between the assassination attempts and the combat training and the long conversations in the garden, this place had stopped feeling like a prison. It had started feeling like home, and Hana had stopped feeling like an obligation. She'd started feeling like something much more important. Jin stared at the ceiling, pain throbbing in his ribs, and wondered what the hell he was going to do. 2 weeks later, Jin stood at the palace spaceport. His ship was ready, fueled and stocked with supplies. The mechanics had maintained it perfectly during his months away. It looked exactly as he'd left it. He should have been happy. This was what he'd wanted for months. Freedom. His old life back. No more ceremonies, no more protocol, no more guards watching his every move. Instead, he felt hollow. Jin walked around his ship one more time, checking systems he'd already checked twice. He was stalling. He knew it. But he couldn't seem to make himself climb aboard and leave. Procrastinating? Jin turned. Hana stood at the edge of the landing pad, wearing simple robes instead of her usual formal dress. She looked different out here, away from the palace. Younger, more vulnerable. "Just making sure everything works," Jin said. You have checked the same panel 3 times now. Can't be too careful. Hana walked closer. May I come aboard? I have never seen the inside of a cargo ship. Jin gestured for her to follow. The ship was small compared to royal vessels. The cargo bay took up most of the space. Jin's living quarters were barely bigger than a closet. One bunk, a small desk, a tiny kitchen area. Hana looked around with interest. You lived here? For years? Yeah, it's not much, but it's mine. It is very practical, Jin laughed. That's a polite way of saying cramped and boring. I was trying to be diplomatic. Hana ran her hand along the control panel. But I can see why you missed it. Your own space, your own rules. Freedom to go wherever you want, that was the idea. They stood in the small cockpit. Through the window they could see the palace in the distance, its towers gleaming in the sunlight. Jin, Hana said quietly. Why are you still here? My ship needed maintenance. The Queen insisted on paying for... That is not what I mean. Hana turned to face him. You have been cleared for departure for 3 days. The ship has been ready for 3 days. Yet every morning you find another reason to delay. Jin didn't have a good answer. Or rather, he did, but he wasn't sure how to say it. Hana stepped closer. I have a question to ask you, but I need you to answer honestly. Not politely, not diplomatically. Just honest. I'm always honest. Good. She took a breath. What if I asked you to stay? Not because of law or tradition or debt, but because I want you to. Because over these months you have become important to me. Because the thought of you leaving makes me feel like I'm losing something precious. Jin stared at her. His heart was pounding in a way that had nothing to do with danger or fighting. Why would you want me to stay? He asked. I'm just a cargo pilot. You're a princess. Your life is here with your people and your duties. What could I possibly offer you? You offer honesty in a court full of lies, Hana said. You see me as a person, not a title. You make me laugh. You challenge me to think differently. You jumped through a window to save my life. Her voice cracked slightly. You are brave and stubborn and completely infuriating, and I have never felt more alive than when I am with you. Jin couldn't breathe. Hana, I know it is foolish. We are from different worlds, different species. There are 1,000 reasons why this makes no sense. But when have you ever cared about what makes sense? You fight Krell warriors with pipes. You jump through windows. You do impossible things because you refuse to accept limits. She took his hand. So I'm asking, stay. Not as my guard or protector or prisoner. Stay because you want to. Because this is where you belong. Jin looked down at their hands. Her skin was cool and smooth against his scarred knuckles. He thought about his ship, waiting to take him back to his old life. Lonely cargo runs, empty conversations with traders he barely knew. No one waiting for him when he landed. Then he thought about the palace. The guards he'd trained who looked at him with respect now. The morning sparring sessions. The evening walks in the garden with Hana, talking about everything and nothing. The feeling of having a purpose beyond just surviving. I'm not good at this, Jin said. Feelings and relationships and all that. I'm good at fighting. At fixing ships. At being stubborn. I know. I'll probably mess this up. Say the wrong thing. Forget some important protocol. I know that too. And I can't give up being who I am. I'll always be a little rough around the edges. I'll never fit perfectly into palace life. Hana smiled. I do not want you to fit perfectly. I want you to be exactly who you are. The human who is too stubborn to quit. Who sees things no one else sees. Who makes me want to be braver. Jin realized he was smiling too. You're already brave. You just needed someone to remind you. So will you stay? Jin thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. Then he laughed, shaking his head. I guess one more cargo run can wait. Maybe a few more. Hana's face lit up like he'd given her the greatest gift in the universe. Truly. Yeah, but I have conditions. Name them. I keep my ship. I'm not giving up flying completely. Agreed. I train the guards my way. No interference from stuffy military advisors. Done. And no more formal dinners unless absolutely necessary. That food is weird, Hana laughed. I will see what I can do. Jin pulled her closer. And one more thing. Whatever this is between us, we figure it out together. No secrets, no politics, no hidden agendas. Just us being honest with each other. I would not want it any other way. They stood there in the cockpit of his ship. The princess and the cargo pilot. 2 people who should never have met but somehow fit together perfectly. So what now? Jin asked. Now we go back to the palace, together. Hana took his hand. Mother is waiting. She predicted you would stay. She did? She said humans are stubborn, especially when they find something worth protecting. And that you had found exactly that, Jin laughed. She knows me too well. They walked back toward the palace together. Above them, the 3 moons of Valora Prime were rising, painting the sky in shades of silver and blue. Guards saluted as they passed. Servants bowed. But Jin barely noticed. He was too busy listening to Hana talk about plans for improving the guard training, her ideas for reforms, her dreams for the future. Their future, he realized. Somewhere along the way, her future had become his future too. In the palace tower, Queen Nari watched them approach through her window. A small smile crossed her face. She had known the human would stay. Humans were predictable in their unpredictability. They claimed to want freedom, but what they really wanted was purpose, connection, something worth fighting for. Jin had found all 3 here. The queen turned from the window, satisfied. Her daughter was safe. The conspiracy was crushed. And standing guard over it all was one stubborn human who refused to quit. It was more than she could have hoped for. Jin and Hana entered the palace through the garden entrance. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the perfectly manicured lawns. Do you regret it? Hana asked. Giving up your freedom? Jin thought about it. I'm not giving it up. I'm choosing something different. Something better. What is better than freedom? Having a reason to stay in one place. Having people who matter. Having someone to protect, he looked at her. Having you. Hana stopped walking and turned to face him fully. Jin of Earth, you are terrible at romance. I warned you, but you are very good at honesty. She smiled. And I think I prefer honesty to romance anyway. They continued into the palace, talking and laughing. Behind them, Jin's ship sat on the landing pad, waiting. It would always be there, ready for the day he wanted to fly again. But for now, he had everything he needed right here. He had found his home. Not in a place, but in a purpose. In a person. And for a human who had spent years drifting through space, never settling anywhere, that was worth more than all the freedom in the galaxy. Jin had defended the princess with his life, and her mother wouldn't let him leave. But in the end, it wasn't the queen who made him stay. It was his own stubborn human heart, finally finding something worth holding on to. And he wasn't letting go.